This is brought to you by the Kansas City Business Association, located at 1601 East 18th Street, Suite 200F.
What's up, Kansas City? I'm Serenity. Today we have Laura McDonald. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Serenity.
You're with the MORE2 organization. Can you give us a little bit of background? Exactly what does MORE mean, obviously, and then tell us what it does for the community.
Okay, so Metro Organization for Racial and Economic Equity is our name, but more squared is a little easier and catchier, so we use that. What we do essentially is work on public policies. We do community organizing through the faith community to work on public policies that address social justice issues, everything from health equity issues, for example. Certain zip codes in Kansas City have very different life expectancies than others, so we work on policies to change that. We work on public education policies to try to keep this charter expansion from happening as quickly as it is. All kinds of different things, but mostly on public policies that are around race issues and economic issues.
You said there was a breakdown of criminal justice system is involved. So what have you guys done with the local police department? Like anything that you're working with them on?
So we're just beginning to work on, primarily in our background, Serenity, we've done things around public policies after people return from incarceration. I'm sure you know there's all kinds of issues when you come back from prison.
Right.
And it's really difficult to get a job, and it's even more difficult if you're an African American person to get a job in Kansas City after you've had a conviction.
And not just Kansas
Period.
City.
No, you're right, but even more so, I believe, in Kansas City because I do have a national lens, and I think it's harder here in this city than in some. So research has been done all over the nation, and it shows that a white man with a felony conviction has an easier time getting a job than a black man in general. With the exact same pedigree and resume and everything. So if we know that to be true, you can imagine then the added strikes against the black man who does have a felony, right? And then compound that with the racist attitude in our city, and it gets very serious. So we have to look at public policy. So we've changed several public policies around post-incarceration issues.
So what do you mean by change?
We did ban the box in Kansas City, Missouri with Councilman Rd, who was our awesome sponsor, and it ultimately, I think only one council member voted against that ultimately, so it took the criminal history question off the city's employment application. Now we're looking at doing something deeper with that. But I want to.
Obama just did something with that.
I did see that in executive order. So we're looking forward to, and we're doing this metro-wide. We don't just work in Kansas City, Missouri. So we did ban the box in Wyandotte County, which is Kansas City, Kansas, and the county. And we're hoping to expand that perhaps to private employers right now. We don't know if we'll get there or not. So we primarily, that was our background. And then when Mike Brown was killed, our sister organization, I happened to be in St. Louis the day after he was killed by Officer Darren Wilson, and that of course created a space where we had to start looking at ourselves here and not just acting and going across the state and going, oh, this is a St. Louis problem. No, this is a Kansas City problem also. And one of the things we didn't even realize is the young man who was killed down at Power and Light. His name's Ryan Stokes. He was a member of one of our church members. Zion Grove Missionary Baptist is one of the key members of MORE2, and Ryan was an active member with that church. And essentially, the officer who killed him, there was the exact same thing as what happened with Officer Darren Wilson. It looked like they did a grand jury, looked like they didn't really want an indictment. And
Can you tell us a little bit about that
results.
incident? Like for those people who don't know what happened in that incident.
Sadly, very few of us paid attention, that day. So Ryan was killed in July of 2013. He was, just to tell you a little bit about who he was, I mentioned he's a churchgoer, but he was, I want to say he was about 23, 24. He had a little girl who was about a year and a half old, I believe, when he was killed. He was a hard worker. He worked for a step-down dry cleaning business 6 days a week. People loved him so much that the funeral at a very big church was busting at the seams, like standing room only at his funeral. And I mean, that's unusual for a very old person, let alone somebody of his age, right? So who he was a young man who loved his daughter, loved his fiance, was saving up for a wedding, and had a good education and was interested in getting more. Brittany Lee, his fiance, was in college at the time that he was killed. He was a really good friend, so he had a friend who asked him would he go out that night with him to Power and Light. It's my understanding Ryan wasn't drinking that night, as Power and Light was shutting down for the evening. As it happens, I'm told I don't really go out there. I'm a little old, and I don't like some of their practices there. But
yeah, we're not gonna get to it.
yeah, we could go there too. So as they were shutting down for the evening, there were a group of 4 Caucasian young men from Johnson County who one of them was missing his cell phone, and he points to Ryan's friend and he's like, that guy's got my phone. Completely for no reason, like nobody knows why he picked that guy out of the group, except that he was standing near him. So he and his 4 friends start kind of antagonizing Ryan and his couple and his friend who was with him. Then they end up telling a bicycle cop who's out there, that guy's got my cell phone. And now they're pointing at Ryan and his friend, like they both just arbitrarily took his cell phone. They both had cell phones. They didn't need to be stealing somebody's phone. Not that that even matters, right? But it started with a racist accusation, right?
Yeah, that's the assumption that, you know, he stole from him.
Uh-huh.
And I'm assuming
exactly. Because he's
he's
black,
man,
his friend's
right?
black, and we're very entitled to make accusations all the time, right? And so he made this false accusation, and I guess what happened from what I've learned from several different sources is the bicycle cop then had a little bit of words with them. They end up, the white guys are trying to jump Ryan and his friend, and the last thing we see of Ryan is him on the video on a security video with his arms stretched out as if to keep these guys and his friend from fighting.
Right. So he's trying to break it up.
That's what it looks like, and certainly that's what the family's attorney feels it looks like as well. And you can see this; anybody can see these videos.
Right.
Anyway, then I think what they say happened is the cop. It was July in Kansas City.
Right. It's hot.
It was
summertime.
it was what they at the police department were calling a hot night, and so they were trying to draw more officers out from the office, including desk officers who really didn't engage in active street duty.
Right.
So a bicycle officer ends up spraying pepper spray into the crowd that night, hits Ryan's friend amongst other people. Ryan doesn't take pepper spray in his eyes, and so he starts jaunting off to get the car to come back and pick up his friend. And as he's moving away, the bike cop is following him. He apparently doesn't know it. And the bicycle cop is calling dispatch and saying, I'm in pursuit of a suspect, describes Ryan, and 30 seconds later, Ryan is dead. He was shot by a officer who was a desk officer who was called out because it was a hot night. So this guy is probably revved up himself, and within 30 seconds. So there was no Ryan, as far as what people can tell who see it through his lens. He probably didn't even know he was being pursued that night, and he didn't know he was a suspect. They say he was taught to absolutely comply with authority no matter what, and he really didn't have in his history any reason not to.
Be combative with the police.
Yeah, so that's what they say, and given my understanding of our community, I just have to agree that sounds far more probable than the other side of things. then there was an indictment, or it was brought before the grand jury. There was not an indictment. The other thing that we learned, Serenity, that was really concerning is when there is an officer-involved shooting and it's going to go before a grand jury in Kansas City, they actually take the grand jury to the police academy and show them training videos and walk them through what officers learn out in the field. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's really, really an extreme measure to take, but given that you're walking them through what it means to be the defendant in this case, right?
What about the victim?
So if I'm a woman who's been facing domestic violence for 10 years and I kill my husband in an altercation, nobody makes them live in my domestic violence victim's shoes, right?
Right.
But
true.
somehow we think because they're police officers, we're going to have a different standard, and that's real concerning to my organization. So we've started looking at what are the issues, who makes that decision, is it our local prosecutor, or is this just standard practice in Missouri? Mm-hmm. We're trying to figure out where is the policy, where do we put some pressure to change that, because it's absolutely unjust for you to see a case through the eyes of the defendant like they do.
Very glad that you came in, because definitely more people need to know about your organization.
Well, thank you.
So you guys work with different religious organizations, correct? Give us a little bit of background about that, and then your event that you're having on November 16th.
Great.
Where that is going to be, and how you guys do things in conjunction with different churches.
Super. Okay, so we have, we are a membership organization, congregations who are concerned about social justice, particularly racial equity issues and socioeconomic issues like Medicaid expansion that people can't access in Missouri, right? Things like that. If you're concerned about those type of issues, you join More Squared. It's a very nominal membership fee, and then churches help us raise money so I can get paid and things like that, right? So,
right, because what is your exact position there? We didn't even discuss that.
Oh, yeah. I'm the executive director of More Squared, and I've been in my position for about 3.5 years now. Okay. And I've been a social worker in the community for 20 years here. Yeah. So as a community organizer, though, we work with our churches to mobilize membership to address these big issues, right? And we will be having an event around race on November 16th. It's not a single event. It's a kickoff of, it's a public launching of who we've always been, which is an organization working around racial equity. And so that event is essentially about things like helping people understand white privilege as a concept, helping people understand that racism is not something
that's make-believe.
Right, racism is real,
right.
And it's structural, and it's embedded in public policies, it's embedded in the fiber of this community, and that we have to take an active role to dismantle racism as it exists today. And as a matter of fact, we operate with a perception that only white people can exercise racism, right?
So where is that going to be at?
That will be at St. Stephen Baptist Church. It's at 1414 East Truman Road, not far from here. And we will, it's Monday night, November 16th from 6 to 9 p.m. And everybody's welcome. People can bring their children, whatever. I have one, and I've been bringing him to More Squared stuff since he was a toddler, so please bring out the young ones. So that will start with a discussion about dismantling structural racism and what it looks like. Like a lot of people in Kansas City don't know, how did we get this truce divide, right?
Yeah, actually that's pretty historical.
Yes.
Right? If you research the history of the city, and you see where that divide comes at.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be talking about that.
Okay. Well, how would someone, if they wanted more information about More Squared, you in general, or just any of these topics, how would they get in contact with you?
So probably the best way is to email me. You contacted me on Facebook. I do spend a little time on there.
Yeah.
So
you're a real fan. I like that.
my name is Lora. Laura MORE2 is my email address. LoraMORE2@yahoo.com is the best way to reach me, really.
All right. So, thanks for coming in, Lori.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
I'm Serenity, reminding you to spit your piece and making sure you check out whatsupkansascity.net.
I'm IFBB Bikini Pro Kat Williams, and when I'm not working out in the gym, I'm searching the web on Cascade Media and What's Up Kansas City. So make sure you check them out.